All right, y'all. Welcome in officially to the Into the Tank workshop. Today we're going to be talking about what would happen if you were to be presented with the opportunity to go on the show Shark Tank, which we have no affiliation with them. They would hate that I use their words, so I'll just tell you, go watch their show. It's great. It's fun. But here's the preface behind this as we get into the tank today. I had a client that sat down with me and said, Alex, I really want to bring on this investor. And it was someone that they knew well. And they said, I have this opportunity to knock this out of the park. What do I need to have prepared in order to meet with this investor? And when we work with people one-on-one in CEO Finance Academy, we're really getting a handle on the finances of the business. And so I said, all right, well, I want you to imagine for a minute that we're going to be sitting down in front of the Shark Tank and we're going to treat the next few weeks as preparation for that meeting. I actually told him to go binge watch all of his favorite Shark Tank episodes. And I did the same thing. And we both came to the table with the questions that the sharks always grill their people on. And so I want you to imagine for a minute, I'm about to go into the Shark Tank. What numbers do I need to have prepared? And so I've been watching Shark Tank for years. I've went through dozens of episodes, cataloged every kind of question that they asked, and then compiled them into 10 core questions that they grill people on about their business finances and their numbers. That's what we're going to get through today. And we're going to do it with this thought: how well do I really know the numbers in my business? So I'm going to invite you to pull out a pencil and paper or your favorite iPad note-taking device, because you're going to be scoring yourself along the way, and you will get the most out of the next 25 minutes of your life if you actually do this and then go act on it, instead of just treat this as intellectual education that someday, somewhere you might use. And so instead, we're going to actually get something out of the next 25 minutes. Can we all agree with that? Just type yes in the chat real quick if you are okay actually getting something out of this, which means being present and doing some of the work in real time. So let's dive in real quick, sort of preface to this whole thing. These are the 10 numbers that you need to know in your business, but really, who are we? Well, we are CEO Finance Academy. I'm the dude there, top middle in the red. My co-founder and business partner, Will Boyd, is on the left. We're actually doctors of physical therapy who figured out that we got really good at helping people make money when we ran a marketing consultancy. And we got so good at helping them make money that they started asking things like, what do I do with it all? And how much do I owe in taxes? And how much can I pay myself? And it was all these questions that I thought, you don't have to worry about that. You have so much, it doesn't matter. And what we came to realize is that business owners do not get financial education to become owners of their finances. And so we spend time learning marketing, sales, delivery, admin, hiring, but we often don't learn finances. And that's where CEO Finance Academy was born. And now we have a team of profit coaches that actually span the country, that are successful business owners themselves, who now coach our businesses that we work with one-on-one to become true financial stewards in their business. And our mission is really simple. We want to create consistent financial abundance for business owners, for their families, for their employees and their families, and for the business. So in order to do that, we have 3 core things that we work on. Number 1, we believe that you need one-on-one mentorship throughout this program. Or throughout this course of learning finances. And because every business is different, we pair people with a profit coach who can understand their model and walk step by step with them. Number 2, we believe that you need financial education. And number 3, you need to set up the right financial systems in your business. And those 3 things work together in what we call CEO Finance Academy. So now you're going to prepare this piece of paper, and we're going to be scoring yourself 0, 1, or 2 in each of the 10 categories that we're going to go through today. So let's dive in. We're going to start with sales. As we look at the Shark Tank grilling, the very first number that they ask for after they hear the investment opportunity is, what are your sales? And they break this down into 4 different numbers, and these are 4 different numbers that you might want to know, and look at how confident you are around this. So number 1, total sales. What is the lifetime sales of your business? I don't know how many of you have calculated that lately, but it's kind of fun to see if you've been in business for a while. The next number is last year's sales, or sometimes they'll ask, hey, what do the last 3 years of sales look like? Because they want to see the trend, right? Next is year-to-date sales. And finally is projected. Now, this is a really interesting one because most of the projections are complete BS. I don't know if you've ever watched Shark Tank and seen someone project that, oh yeah, I'm going to be at, I'm only at 200,000 of revenue right now, but by the end of the year, we project 3 million. You're like, fat chance. I'll be honest, most of the time when I see people making projections, they're completely pulling a number out of the air. Instead, there is a scientific approach that we can use with past data, with some of the other numbers that we'll look at later today, and you can make an accurate prediction for how much revenue you actually intend to make. And kind of interesting that, this is all BS at the end of the day for a lot of people, but there is a true science behind it. And if we get it right, it actually leads us to know exactly when I need to hire, when I can increase ad spend, how I can scale the business profitably. And it makes this whole thing around running a business much more scientific than feeling based. So now I want you to ask yourself, you're going to grade yourself right now, how well could I come up with my sales numbers on the fly if I had to get, if I were asked in Shark Tank right now, am I a 0, a 1, or a 2? I want you to put it in the chat right now. How well do you feel like you know your sales numbers top of mind, both total, last year, year to date, maybe even projected? 0, 1, or 2 in the comments. 0 is, I have no clue. 1 is so-so. And 2 is, I know I'm probably to the dollar or pretty sticking close, okay? And we'll go with this for everyone. Great. Okay, so we've got some 1s and some 2s. That's usually what we see. Second, cost of client acquisition. How much does it cost you to acquire a customer? I remember I got this question asked to me about 3 years ago when we were running a business that was completely organic marketing, meaning we didn't spend any money. And I thought, well, that's stupid. I don't have a cost of acquisition. And I would challenge you on that if that is the position you're in, because if you aren't having ads going out or you're not spending money to acquire customers, then you are probably spending either time or goodwill, right? You're getting referrals, word of mouth, or you're spending your time, you're hustling to go get new clients. If it's a dollar amount, then this makes it really easy if we look at paid advertising. If it is a time amount, then you have to look at what your time is worth. If your time is worth $100 and it takes you 10 hours to get a client, then it's $1,000 worth of your time, and that's your marketing cost. On the other side of things, we've got a sales cost, which maybe it's a percentage of the sale if you have a sales team like we do, and you're cutting a specific percentage to that. Maybe you run an e-commerce store, and this isn't relevant, and we can just look at gross margins. But instead, we're looking at, for every dollar of marketing that I put in, how many dollars do I get out? So we have a large e-commerce business that we're working with right now that sells motorcycle parts, and they're trying to figure out their marketing cost. And the problem is they haven't ever tracked how much it takes them to sell one of their things. So if they have a $500 windshield, they don't know if it costs them $300 of advertising money or $100. And so when we come to ask, should I scale my marketing? The question is, I don't know. Is it working? What's your ROI? What's your cost of acquisition? Okay. So now I want you to put in the comments 0, 1, or 2. How confident do you feel about your cost to acquire a customer? I'll just tell you, as we go through this, I track this stuff like a hawk in our business because we're almost completely reliant on paid acquisition in our business. And so I know to the dollar how much it costs us to acquire a customer. And I can track the numbers that come before that, right? All the ads numbers, and see, are those changing? Because that's going to affect my cost. And I can look at the downstream side. How good are my conversions and the sales team? And what are we doing to adjust that side to bring those numbers down? So there's both a marketing cost and kind of a sales team efficiency cost that combine for marketing costs overall. Ooh, this is an interesting one. So a lot more low numbers here, 1s and some 0s. This one, if we know this number, gives us such greater speed of growth. All right, number 3, average order value. There's 2 different ways to look at this. If you have a physical products business, then you can go into Shopify and see, okay, I've got 100 orders and there were $100,000 worth of receivables there. Then it's $1,000 per order, right? So we can just look at total number of orders, total order value, and sort of extract that out. If you run a service-based business, then you might look at lifetime value or 1-year value of treating a customer or a patient or a client, right? It's like, okay, someone buys from me, what will they spend with me on average over the next year? That might be my average order value. So why do the sharks care about this number so much? Well, largely because it's tied to this. They want to know if it costs you $100 to acquire a customer, but your average order value is $100, that's a break-even business. In fact, it's worse than break-even because we haven't even factored in product cost yet, right? Just looking at the sales side. And so they're doing the math in their head, the sharks, to see what are your actual margins. And the reason they want to know this is because they're coming in with a giant bucket of cash. And an investor might be doing the same for your business. And if we're not looking for investors, but we're just looking to scale our business, then we might be looking at our own business saying, can I put more money into the marketing machine? And if so, will it actually work for me? Because if a big investor were to come in and say, look, I want to pour $100,000 into marketing for you over the next quarter, well, would they make their money back or not? And we want to know those numbers to the same degree of certainty. So I want you to put in the chat right now, average order value. Are you a 0, a 1, or a 2 on how well you know your average order value or maybe lifetime value of a customer if you have a service-based business? 0, 1, or 2 in the chat. Let's see this. And this is an interesting one that if you sell lots of different things, we have to sit down with our clients to figure out, okay, what is the proportion of things that you sell? Maybe you've got 2 or 3 different services. It's like, well, some people buy that, some buy that, and some buy that. Yeah, but we're finding an average. So let's look at the last year of data together, sit down and come up with this number so that we can see, okay, on average, people spend $1,000 with me and it costs me $300 in advertising. Cool, I've got a $700 spread to cover my costs and all my overhead. So we got some 2s, we got some 0s, and project size always varies. Yeah, so now this is why it is average order value. So then go look at what is my average over the last year or over the last however long I've been offering that product or service. If it varies, that's why we say average, okay? All right, next, gross margins. So they'll ask, hey, what's your gross margin? Or in other words, if you sell $100 of something, how much of that do you keep after your costs to deliver the service or produce the product, right? And we need to know a couple numbers here. How much do we sell it for? Or in other words, the revenue from one sale minus what our direct cost is. So let's say I have a $100 really cool water bottle. It's like this amazing thing. I love water bottles because I have to drink a lot of water here while I'm talking at you. Let's say we have a $100 water bottle and it costs us $20 to make, right? It's a really cool, like giant thermos thing, really heavy duty, $20 to make. That means I have $80 left over at the end. So here's my $100 minus my 20 gives me 80 divided by my initial 100. So 80 over 100 would be 80% gross margins. Cool. So I need to know my gross margins. If I were to ask you right now, what level of confidence do you have around your gross margins? Are you 0? Are you 1? Or are you 2? 0 is, I actually have no clue. 1 is, I kind of know the ballpark. And 2 is, I know it so well that if I go sell another 100 of those things, I know it's going to be pretty consistent right there. Okay? Some 1s. And when you look at this, then the cool thing about this is it's just doing a little bit of digging, a little bit of math to go figure this out. But this is how we reverse engineer all of our sales targets in the business, by figuring out how much do I keep after I sell all my stuff. All right, number 5. This one's a little bit easier. This is net margin. How much do you actually keep at the end of the day after all your direct costs for products or services, then all your other overhead? You know, am I a 5% net margin? Am I 10? Am I 35? We have a business that does, they'll do about 10 million this year in revenue that we work with. And we were going through their gross margins and I looked and I couldn't believe it. They're at a 44% net margin on $10 million. And so you can start to think about, wow, my net margin, if it gets, and that's not common for a business that large to have that kind of margins. But if you've got $4 million of profit at the end of the day, that creates its own quote unquote problems because now we got to save more for taxes, right? And so that's the goal, is increase our net margins, and then we get to solve the other problems that come after that. But right now, if I were to ask you, what is your net margin? Are you 0, 1, or 2 on confidence? For a long time, our net margins were like 85, 90%. Because we run an online consultancy, we don't have a ton of overhead. That was when we were small, we didn't have team, and our biggest costs were literally coaching. And then as it expanded, it's like, oh, okay, well, we need to fit in an ads budget. We need to fit in a budget for our coaches. We need to fit in budget for assistants. We need to fit in budget for these special projects. And as I saw that number drop, my heart started feeling like, oh man, I'm not as successful. A lot of people really lean into net margin as the only thing in their business early on, and it's not the only thing. But man, if we're hovering around 5 or 10% net margins in your business, it ends up being difficult to run a business at those margins unless we get really big. Cool. So we got some 1s and 2s in net margin. Sweet. Number 6, pretty simple, cash in the bank. What is in the bank right now? And I like to combine this or add in any accounts receivable, so money people owe me, and accounts payable, any money I owe people, so I can see where am I really at kind of net, right? Maybe I have $50,000 in the bank. I am owed $50,000, but I owe $120,000. Ooh, that's a problem. I'm negative 20 underwater, right? And a lot of times these numbers just all kind of swim together. And so if you have a complex business where you do have a lot of accounts receivable and accounts payable, track it. It's as simple as that, right? Have your bookkeeper track it. Maybe you need to track it. We have spreadsheets where we do this with our clients. Or if nothing else, we're looking at what's in the bank right now. This is the number one indicator for us as we talk with businesses of the health of a business. It's how much do you have in reserves or in the bank right now compared to what your expenses are. And so if you find yourself going to zero pretty quickly each month or close to it, it's a sign we need to change something significant in the business with how you're managing cash flow. And the sharks want to know that. They want to see, have you blown through all the cash? And if not, great. It means that we're in a much better place for growth. All right, number 7 is market size. I actually think of the 7, this is the least important metric for most business owners to know right now, because honestly, it doesn't have a lot of bearing for the size of businesses that many of us are on this call. It's like, look, you haven't tapped into even a percent of your market yet, most likely. However, this does become important when you're looking at scale. It's like, ooh, I have tapped out my current market. Most of you won't be there, but market size, how many people can you serve in your business? And really, I'm just looking at, of all the, maybe I run a pool repair business in Birmingham, Alabama. And I need to see, all right, there's 100,000 pools and we service 3,000 of them. Great. I only have a 3% market share. I have tons of room for growth. That's really what I care about when we're looking at market sizes. Do we have room for extra growth in here or not? It's not a number that we focus on very heavily. All right. Number 8 is percentages. This is an Alex term. Percentages out the door. How much money are you giving to other people every single month or every single quarter because they have a stake in your business? So this is profit sharing, if you maybe have some profit sharing partners or employees that you profit share with. It's investors, if you happen to have investors. And the sharks want to know this because they want to see, well, what else is going out the door? More commonly for the businesses that we see, we might say, hey, this is really a sales commission. For every dollar I bring in, I give 10% to the sales team. It might be franchise fees. If you run a franchise, 5% goes out the door every time. Or numbers that really matter for business owners to look at are things like payment processing fees, right? For every credit card swipe, I pay 3% out the door. So just look at who else has a stake or who gets a cut of your numbers. This also runs into how we actually make financial targets as a business. All right, number 9, how much do you have invested? It might be sweat equity. That might be it. And it might be, I've only put in, I've just put in time and energy. Maybe you have a specific amount of money that you've put into the business. I'll just ask you right now, if you have put money into the business, have you tracked how much of it you have paid back out to yourself? We see a lot of owners who have given lots of loans to the business and haven't worked with their bookkeeper and accountant to make sure that they're able to take that money back out and really pay themselves back. Okay, last one, number 10. This is a messy one for a lot of businesses. Business debt. And so the 3 things that I really look at when we're sitting down with an owner are, how much total do I owe? And more importantly, what is its effect on cash flow in the business? Because your monthly payment is split into 2 different pieces. Number 1, interest, so the amount that they're charging you for the loan. And number 2, principal, the initial amount that you loaned. A lot of business owners don't understand that the principal payment, or what you're paying back to the bank from what you initially borrowed, that doesn't show up on your profit and loss statement. And so you might go through and look at your profit and loss statement at the end of the month and say, I'm profitable. but you look at your bank account and there's not money there. This is one of the biggest places where money is kind of leaking out unnoticed for people as they're paying back debt. And so we have to get strategic about debt payback. I haven't asked this question here for the last 2 or 3 minutes, so I'll ask it now. How confident are you in your numbers around business debt? Not are you comfortable with it, but how well do you know your business debt numbers? So for example, do you know how much you owe? And specifically, do you know what your principal payback is each month? Do you know how much money is going out the door after your profit and loss statement? 0, 1, or 2 below. Let's see where we're at. Oh, sweet. We got some people with 2s. Love it. All right. So now we pull all these things together. And you're going to, this is where, if you're watching on the replay, pause this. Otherwise, hopefully you've been taking some notes along the way. You're going to score yourself for each of these. How confident am I in my numbers if I were to be asked point blank? I want you to look at sales, client acquisition, order value, gross margins, net margins, how much you've got in the bank, the size of your market, the percentages that are going out the door, how much you have invested, and maybe how much you've paid yourself back from that, and total business debt. So you're going to give yourself a score from 0 to 2 on each of these, add up the total down here, and then I want you to do 2 things. Number 1, I want you to start tracking this. Maybe this is a once a month, hey, I'm going to check in on this, see how I'm doing. But more importantly, look at the 0s and 1s on this list and figure out which one is most important for you to go dial in on next. So I want you to ask yourself, after you've gone through this here, which of these do you feel like you need to most focus on improving your understanding of right now? If you had to say, is it sales, acquisition cost, cash in the bank, which one of these numbers do you feel like you need to get a better handle on right now in your business? Will you put that in the chat? I'm curious. If you don't want to share it with people, you can private message it to me in the chat. I'm curious to see from this, where do you feel like you need to go next? And we're doing a ton of workshops on this stuff, so I can do one on these specifically. But we've done workshops over the last month on gross and net margins. We have talked a lot about how much cash to have in the bank. We've talked about how much to pay yourself and understanding your profit and loss statement for debt payback. And if you want those workshops, you can check out our website, and we have a whole page for workshops. So now this last piece here in the last couple of minutes, this is a really sobering statistic as we look at what makes businesses not work. And 82% of small businesses fail because of cash flow issues by the statistics. Cash flow issues are the number one reason. And so if you want to get serious about your business finances, then let's talk. This is exactly what we do all day, every day. And we really ultimately solve what I call the big 3 problems. I looked at every problem that people come to us with, and they fit into one of these 3 larger buckets. Problem number 1 is fundamentally, I don't understand my finances or my numbers. So people might say something like, and you might be feeling this in your business, I don't know how much I can pay myself. I don't know where my money went. I know I'm making money. It's just not in the bank account. Where did it go? I don't know if I can afford this next hire. I know I need to. I feel like I need to, but I don't know if I can afford to hire. All of these ultimately come down to you probably haven't had the education that you need on the financial side. You've probably gotten great marketing, sales training, coaching on how to lead a team, but maybe you haven't gotten led on how to manage finances in the right way. Problem number 2, I just call this crap financial organization. Okay. It's not having things well set up in your business from an organization standpoint. So you might be asking, I don't know what bank accounts to use or how to use them. I know I've heard this profit first thing. I'm not actually doing it. I have no clue how banks work and what bank account should look like in my business. I'm flying by the seat of my pants with how I manage money. Or if you're behind on paying taxes, maybe you owe back taxes for last year, or you're worried about the tax bill for this year, it's actually financial organization. And so how can we solve that lack of organization? That's part of what we do. Number 3 is poor cash and cash flow management. So we hear this all the time. I feel like I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I get in an invoice from a client and I use that to pay the costs for another client. And now all of a sudden I don't have money to pay for what that client just paid me for. Oh crap. Number 2, owner pay roller coaster. If you feel like you're on a roller coaster with how you're paying yourself and it's eating at you, please, whether it's with us or through free YouTube content or binging our free stuff or working one-on-one with us or someone else, Stop letting yourself be on an income roller coaster. It is the number one problem I see for business owners. The business goes up, finally I get to pay myself. The business crashes, they don't pay themselves. Or even worse, the business is doing great, but I can't pay myself because it's all such in flux, I don't have a clue, and my family is suffering. Please don't let yourself stay on that roller coaster. We've been there. Finally, number 3, what do I do with all this cash? This is my favorite problem to solve. It's really fun when you've got a bunch of money sitting in the bank and you're like, ooh, I haven't actually learned how to allocate resources well. What can I do to make the most of this? So if you want to go from feeling like, yeah, things are kind of so-so to I feel so successful in my finances, then you make the call. Hop on a call with us. I'll drop the link here in the chat, or you can see it below this video on the recording. Sit down with us and let us know what is it that you feel like you need to improve in your business finances. We'll sit down for 15 minutes together, get a lay of the land of what your business is looking like, and say, you know what, I think this might be the next focus for you. If we're the next focus, we can look at that on a future call. And if not, we might say, you know what, you really just need to go improve sales. You really need to improve marketing. Or we'll point you towards the best resource that we trust for helping you with whatever financial situation you're in. So if you want to talk for 15 minutes with us, hit the link below at ceofinanceacademy/book-profit-call. We'd be happy to sit down with you for 15 minutes and help guide you for the next step with where you're at financially. Y'all, thank you so much. We appreciate you being on here. If you have any questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat. I'll stay on here for a couple more minutes after the recording ends. Otherwise, we're grateful to have you here. We look forward to talking with you. Now go take action on this stuff and make the last 30 minutes of your life actually worth something. Instead of just learning, go implement it. And if implementing it means speaking with us, let's get on the phone. We'll see you on there. Thanks, y'all, and we appreciate you being here. We will have more workshops coming down the pipeline, and we'll let you know about those as they come out. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.